Hi, I'm Sarah Noble, your host for the Modern Day Intuitive Podcast. For over 25 years, I've been on a spiritual journey, searching, learning, expanding, and growing. I've traveled the world, led by my heart, on a quest to know myself so that I can support others. This podcast was created from my deep desire to help you connect with your intuition and to inspire you to create a life where the impossible becomes possible and you live into your sacred dreams and desires. Thanks for being here and enjoy the show. Hello, my loves. Welcome to the show. Thanks for being here with me and just really being on this wild journey that we are on as humans, as souls, as humans in these bodies here on earth, really navigating some strange and unprecedented times. There is so much that's available to us at the moment. I know that when we zoom into our lives, things can feel hard, things can feel challenging. And the invitation, my love, is to really zoom out and look at these times from a spiritual perspective and recognize that we are really here to change the world, to change the trajectory that we are on right now. And this means thinking bigger than just ourselves, that we are all in this together, humans, one species, one organism that feels everything that each other feels. We just cover it up. And in today's episode, Hiba and I go deep into this concept. Hiba is a Palestinian woman living in the US as a free woman, and yet she is still bumping up against ancestral and religious wounding from her heritage. She is also someone who's here with a really big voice to share stories, to help the world. So she starts our conversation with a little bit of her story of where she's been over the last few months and the synchronicities that are happening for her as she's coming into this bigger perspective of helping women and humans in the world. So as you listen to our beautiful conversation, she's here seeking guidance on this voice and how to tell perceived fear versus real fear, and how this is intertwined in her journey of speaking and celebrating having a voice. So our conversation touches on our ancestral wounding and our commitment to heal it, to help humanity, how this is just so much bigger than our individual process. We talk about religious organizations and their history of separating us from our divinity and our connection to source. We talk about how we are all interconnected human beings and how we are affected together by the chaos in our world today, and we feel each other's pain whether or not we realize it. We look at knowing that your purpose is bigger than what other people think of you, and how living into your Dharma is really a one step at a time journey, that so many of us do not see the whole path, and the invitation and the devotion to this path is really showing up for just the next step that we're shown, knowing that it's divinely guided and that there is so much more available to us that we just don't know yet. And that courage, that bravery to show up one step at a time as we move towards something big and huge and beautiful for ourselves and each other. So my loves, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I love you. And from one human being to another, from one woman to another, thank you. Hi, Hiba. Welcome to the podcast. How can I help you today?
Hi, Sarah. Thank you so much for having me. So in the last year and a half, I've been getting really strong messages or like intuitive nudges to write more and share my writing publicly. I started writing 2.5 years ago, a story that I didn't know was inside of me. And then I kind of got deeper into my own spiritual practice and started getting a lot of messages about kind of the path forward, which felt scary at the beginning because I didn't know how to trust myself or trust the messages that were coming through. But then the deeper I leaned in, and also the more I started to listen and act on these nudges, the more the road revealed itself and started opening up for me. And so just this summer, I finally listened, started acting on some of the intuitive nudges that I've been too resistant to go through, because I think I wasn't allowing myself to take up the identity of a writer. It's not in my professional training. I just didn't really have the know-how, I guess, of how to write a story. It was easier to convince myself that I was a storyteller. And then last summer, I went to Camino de Santiago, again, purely on a nudge. And the whole story that I'd been ideating on for a year and a bit started coming together. So it was just a bunch of notes for a while, and then it came together on my walk. And then from there, I'm just giving you a bit of context for the listener to kind of set up the question. From there, I took last fall, to just kind of get rid of the excuses that I've built up in my own mind. And I went to Central America for 3 months to go back to that story I started writing. But then, funnily enough, more stories came out of me. So the first story that I started writing isn't even finished, but the second and third and fourth story have come out of me since. And I've been doing a lot of writing on ancestral healing. The first bit of writing I did on ancestral healing came to me in September 30th. And I'm giving you the dates because I'm Palestinian, and I had connected with my ancestors on the 30th of September. I started writing a lot about that. And then October 6th, I wrote a whole 75 pages on what does it take for us to heal our traumas as human beings, which is related to the work that I do in a maybe less clear way. And then the next morning, after writing those 75 pages, I woke up to the news of October 7th of attacks on Israel. And then the war in Gaza started immediately after, which reactivated my own ancestral trauma that I had just been writing about. So then I went through a deep depression in October, November time, and was feeling completely reactivated in my trauma. So I wasn't able to write for like 6 weeks. And then I got back to writing over the holidays. And then I've been writing consistently since, which has been a beautiful, beautiful and very healing, integrative journey. And now I'm feeling called to start sharing my writing more publicly. I started a blog like 2 weeks ago, or a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago now. And that's felt really good, actually, it's helping me kind of integrate and heal as I write and share. But I feel like now I'm being called to write more publicly about some of the conversations I'm having in private, because I feel like people need to hear about those conversations because they've been healing for the people that are having them. And I feel called to be a vessel for those conversations to be brought into light for others to see and to share in case it is helpful. And so for a long time, it's felt dangerous, I guess, to be open about some of the conversations I've been having, but it really feels like necessary. And I guess I want to know like how much my fear is real versus perceived. I want to know, like, am I on the right path? Am I understanding the assignment? I guess.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your journey, and so much hope is the feeling that I get. So initially, right, when you first started talking, I could feel the fear in my body. There was this clenching and sort of running through my whole torso, just this fear. And as you continue to talk through the progression of your story, my crown chakra is very, very activated. And there's two things happening. And initially, the first thing is where it is I am feeling you. And as you are having this awakening, this desire, this process, right, that is coming through you, there's a couple things going on with your crown chakra. Oftentimes, when we come from heritages, from ancestral lines that are steeped in religion and God, where there is a lot of unrest and a lot of warring between that. So these larger institutions can take information and they basically plug it into our crown chakra to block our connection to our divine source. And this happens in a number of different religious organizations. This is something in my own life that I have experienced as well. So that is part of your ancestral wounding, right? It's not necessarily specific to you as an individual. This is something that happens to large populations of people that are underneath these ancestral lineages that carry this wounding through them through time. So that is some of what I sense your fear to be, is that it's essentially like a program, right, that gets put into us epigenetically and sits there in our system, informing us. And so when we have the courage and the insight and the level of healing on our journey where we want to step outside that, we bump up against this and it can feel really real because it's something that we have lived with for a really long time. The other thing that's happening, right, is you are expanding. It's like the plug is in there and then your crown chakra is vibrating and it's saying like it really, I can feel this energy wanting to come in, like that deep connection to your true source, to what it means for you here in this body with the message that you're here to carry. So would you be open? I can reach in across time and space and pull some of that out for you if that's something that feels true and correct for you.
Yeah, sure. That would be great.
Okay. How are you feeling?
Feel steady.
Okay. So the way that I track these things, right? We have the energetics that we live in the physical world. And then we have the spiritual world, and the two of these connect, and our body is a portal the way these connect, right? The earth power comes up, and then the cosmic intuition and intention comes down, and then they meet within our body. And these plugs are designed to block that flow. So if you think about what you came here with this idea, feeling concerned about stepping into the world, if you think about it through this lens of what we've just talked about and removing this intention, essentially, right, which has been placed into your system, is there anything you see differently now? Anything that the way the path forward looks different?
Can you ask that question again? So
Mhm.
like I make sure I understand it.
Yeah. So oftentimes when we are operating and showing up in our life and we have these unconscious intentions that have been filtered through our system through no fault of our own, right? Just because of the lineage that we live inside of. They can create this sense of fear that you've been bumping up against. And is this way of looking at it something that you are familiar with? Like what we've talked about so far, this is not something new and different for you.
No. no, it's like familiar. I think it's part of the ancestral inheritance that I've received. It's your security and safety are your number one priority. Because I come from a family of refugees. And that voice, or like that idea that I'm beginning to challenge, or I've already begun to challenge, is that is the suffering, or those are the experiences of my ancestors to give me the freedom to now, today, be able to use my voice in a way, knowing I am safe, knowing I am secure where I am now, because of the sacrifices that they've endured, because of the suffering that they've endured. So I feel like it is almost a disservice to them. And this is kind of my renegotiation of those voices, or that like inherited feeling, I guess. That's the renegotiation I've made, is like, isn't it such a shame? Or like, not a shame, I hate the word shame, but like, wouldn't it be such a waste of their experience for me to still be stuck in the victimized identity, or stuck in the identity of someone who's suffering when I'm free from that now. And while I'm witnessing a lot of Palestinian suffering in the world, I myself am free to speak up. I myself am physically and mentally free in a lot of ways, where I can set that down and actually take action from a more empowered place, because I don't need to carry that anymore.
When you think about moving forward, your question is about perceived fear versus real fear. What do you know about that already?
I think the perceived fear comes from the experiences that generations before me went through, that it's possible for me to go through the same things, like displacement, or like my life will be in danger somehow. That feels like a perceived fear. Like I have had several incidences, or like thoughts in the last 5 months, where I felt like my life could be in danger if I take this action. And then I took the action anyway, and my life was fine. It was like, actually, I wasn't in danger. Some of the real fears are some of the things I'm seeing happening, like the repercussions or consequences of certain actions that people I know have experienced, or speaking up, whether it's like suspensions from work, or being accused of like anti-Semitism when it's not anti-Semitism, when it's being critical of a government rather than a religion. And I think, as someone who has a lot of deep connections with Jewish friends, that's a fear that I'm afraid of. Like, I don't want anyone to ever think I'm anti-Semitic, because I stand against that anti-Semitism. And I also don't want the fear of being perceived as anti-Semitic, because someone might perceive me that way, even if it wasn't, like to shut me down, from speaking up, so that I can help people heal. Because that's my ultimate goal. So I think some of the fears are like founded based on what I'm seeing today, and some of the fears are perceived based on like the experiences of my ancestors. But even still, like some of the real fears that I have about people being suspended or being fired from their jobs, I don't really have that. It's unfounded for me, because I work for myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm going to talk about both sides of that, starting with, right, those perceived fears. And in my experience, and what I see is, it comes down to, we're all humans. And when we zoom out in the spiritual world and we look at what is a human, we're one species, one organism, all living together, interconnected together, that we've come so far from, we've forgotten this. We're so far away from remembering our interconnectedness. that those perceived fears, you are really feeling what other human beings are feeling. All of us are. But we're distracting ourselves. We're labeling it as like my own anxiety, my depression, my fear, because we don't have a model that tells us and teaches us that we're feeling each other's pain, right? There's no way that war can be going on across the world and it is not affecting us. We're human beings and they're human beings, and we're feeling their pain. We just don't realize it because we don't have the infrastructure to help us remember that and see that. So, yes, it's perceived, right? But it is really real when we come to this place of who we all are.
Yeah, that resonates.
Mm-hmm.
That resonates a lot because I've healed a lot of my own feelings of unworthiness and not good enough and like being undervalued on an individual level in the last few years. But then when all of this started, I started to feel it again in a much more paralyzing way. And I think like the fear, like not being seen, not being valued, not feeling good enough, not feeling worthy enough. And I know this, what you're describing is like this interconnectedness between us. It's like on both sides, there was that fear of like not being valued or like my life is not worth as much as someone else's life. And I think I felt that on a very collective level. And I was like, I've healed that part of myself for myself, but I still feel, and I think this was like the next level of my healing is like, it's not just about me. It's about me in community with others. And it's about us in one consciousness. And this is why I feel this way in this moment.
Yeah. The healing journey, right? It's individual to start. But then once we are comfortable in that place, right? Whole, remembered in that place, then we move into us as women. And for men, it's as men and what that means. And then from there, we move into our humanness. And it's in this bigger, broader picture that the world will change. But it starts with ourselves. But then as you're experiencing, it moves into something bigger. And when you have the awareness that that's what's happening, you can do something about it. The other side, right, this part where it's more these real fears that people that you know and love will take your words and maybe misunderstand them. And what I see in that, right, is that when we do speak the truth from our heart and we have that courage, that it's like it's showing me where it has to exist outside of what other people think, right? Your purpose, what you're here for, is bigger than what people think of you. And I'm not saying that, right, to go out and then say stuff that's going to intentionally hurt people. It's not like that. But when you're here to speak this true wisdom of your heart, it has to be bigger than you, right? Like your identity of, oh gosh, am I going to hurt other people's feelings? Like now we're back in that smaller place of ourself, right? When we're here with these big purposes, that's part of our own wounding that we have to like take that cloak off. We can't be beholden to other people's opinions of us. We can use any form of upsettedness or conflict to create deeper relationship. It gives us more opportunity to be vulnerable and get really deep and narrow with that person that maybe did misunderstand our words. Everything's an opportunity to deepen our relationship. But we can't hold back what we're here to say because of who we might upset.
Yeah. That resonates too about where like the purpose is bigger than me. I've been writing a lot about that actually. And just like realizing that maybe my soul chose this body, this identity in this lifetime because there's something about my mission or purpose that I need to fulfill through this identity. And it's not even about me. Like, it's not about me. It's so much bigger than me. And that's what I'm here to do in this lifetime.
Yeah, the word for me that represents that is dharma, right? We're here with a dharma, and a lot of us just bypass it. And then there's those of us that are like, I'm going to live into it, and I don't know what this means, and I don't know the path forward, but I just know this burning feeling in my soul that I cannot ignore. I've tried, but time is up. I can't any longer.
That resonates a lot.
Yeah. It's something that we have to do. There isn't anybody that can tell us no, and there's nothing that could stop us.
Yeah. I feel like that's the point where I'm at right now. It's like there's no going back. In that, I spoke to one of my mentors a few weeks ago just to kind of say, like, I'm scared, but I need to take a step forward, because I get a lot of messages in my dreams, and I kept having recurrent dreams. And he kept showing up in my dreams. So I actually reached out to him and just told him everything. I can only see the next step, but not the step after that. And that feels scary. As someone who is very prepared all the time, I'm an anesthesiologist by training. I have plans A to E all the time. You think ahead for what might go wrong, how you're going to solve it. I'm an entrepreneur. I prepare for things not to work out and then have a solution. So for me to I can only see the first step forward without the rest of the path, and not knowing at all how the path will unfold in front of me felt really scary, and almost like enough to stop me from starting. And then it was more like having to tell myself, actually, you can still be strategic and take the step forward, regardless of whether or not you see the rest of the path. Just make sure you have the right community around you to support you. Just make sure there's people who are going to be there for you, who are prepared to catch you, who are going to encourage you. And I had that, and I've been building that for years. It's really beautiful. And that was enough for me to take the first step. And now I see the second step, and I'm sure I'll see the third step after that.
Yeah, this is the spiritual path in my experience. It is seeing the next step and having the courage and the willingness to take it. And oftentimes that involves an initiation by fire. Like, it's not just that step was easy along the garden path. It's stepping into something so much bigger, and everything has to burn, right? The old identity has to die in devotion and sacrifice to the new you that you are becoming, the one that is here with the purpose.
That makes sense.
Well, how can I support you from here?
I didn't expect that to be such a hard question to answer.
There doesn't have to be anything else. That can be it. That can be enough for today.
Yeah, I think that's enough for today. And then, I think tuning into some of your talks, I'm sure there'll be a message there for me. So you'll be supporting me even if you don't know.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
I'd love to hear what you're taking away from our call today.
Yeah, it was very affirming, like very, very affirming for me. You said a lot of things that I've been feeling and sensing and have been experiencing, really. But you've kind of just reminded me of them and affirmed them in a way that's keep going. In that, I'm not sure if I asked you this or if I was thinking it, but part of my question was am I on the right path? And I think hearing some of your messages just reaffirms that I am, because of what I already knew. So I'm just feeling very reassured. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Does this feel like an okay place to land today?
Yeah, it's perfect.
Thank you for being here today and making your personal and spiritual growth a priority in your life. To learn more about connecting with your dreams and your intuition so that you can create a life full of possibilities, visit me at www.sarahnoble.com and see how we can create magic together. A big thank you from my heart to yours for making the planet a better place for us all.